Hey, I'm Bree, and this is my sister Jules. I'm an English teacher.
And I'm super sore from the 2-mile run I did today.
And together we drink wine as we unpack the brilliant writing of the hit 90s sitcom, Boy Meets World.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ding. All right, what are we drinking today?
Today we have a 2021 Cabernet Sauvignon by Francis Coppola.
I like it.
It's good, right? Another grocery store wine that is pretty affordable. You can get it for about $18.99. The Crown Jewel of Diamond Collection showcases flavors of plum, black pepper, and cocoa. Do you get any of those notes?
Yeah, I do actually.
I think I do too.
Dark, like
Cacao.
hot cocoa cacao, but like powder.
Yeah.
Like you opened a tin of the powder that's like really concentrated.
And you got a whiff. Yeah.
And I got a whiff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, okay. So Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah. Super famous director and writer and producer. Most famously known for directing and writing.
His wine. You're going to be like most famously known for his winery.
No. He is most famous for writing and directing The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2. And he didn't direct Godfather Part 3, but he did produce it.
You know what else he directed, which I watched with my Art of Writing elective class this freaking week?
What?
The Outsiders.
Oh, I did see that he also did that movie. You know what? I have never read it or seen it. No idea what it's about.
What? So if people talk about like the greasers and the socias, you have no idea what they're talking about. When people say stay gold, pony boy, you don't know what that means.
Nope.
The Outsiders is a novel written by S.E. Hinton, Susan Eloise Hinton. She actually had a cameo in the film. She was the nurse at one point. She was 16 when she wrote the book, which is crazy. And which is why I believe as an English teacher, my students always consistently love it. Because it's written for kids. You know, most authors write books with adult readers in mind. So when a book is written for a kid audience, it's exciting for kids. They get invested, and it's exciting for teachers to watch the students get invested. But there were a lot of huge names in that film. Patrick Swayze and Ralph Macchio and, Rob Lowe. And Diane Lane plays Cherry. She's amazing. She's still beautiful in that film. It's weird to say because she's like 16, so I shouldn't say that. But now she's older than me, so it doesn't feel that weird to say. And it's based on a Robert Frost poem called Nothing Gold Can Stay, which I teach to every group that has ever been in front of me because I'm obsessed with that poem because I'm a basic bash. That poem is also recited by Pony from beginning to end in The Outsiders. Like nothing perfect, nothing pure, nothing golden can stay. It has to be fleeting. And we talk about how like there's a sadness in that, of course, but what it means is that new beginnings can happen. And so that's life. You have to let things end so that you can experience new beginnings. You have to let, there be lows so you can experience new highs.
That's so interesting. I feel like that's a lot of what Casey Musgrave's album Golden Hour is about. It's about the melancholy and the happiness because you know that happiness is fleeting. And it's like super sad, man.
It really is. And I feel kind of bad whenever I teach it to kids because we always talk about like, what's something that you were so excited about at first and now you don't really care about it that much or it's not that exciting anymore. And they always say their phones, like the first time they got their phone was so exciting and now it's just like a part of their life and maybe even a negative part of their life. And that's a big theme in the book too. And so when Johnny tells Ponyboy stay golden, he's telling him to like hold on to that childhood innocence, hold on to that lust for Pony still sees like the beauty in a sunrise and all the other guys in his gang called the Greasers are getting really jaded because they're living on the streets and life's hard and there's violence and all that. So the acting is mid sometimes, but overall excellent job. And I am proud to drink your wine, Francis Ford Coppola.
Woo, cheers.
So we watched the 5th episode of season 1. Title, Killer Bee. Synopsis. Cory schemes to enter a contest so he can win a coveted baseball prize. It's directed by David Traynor yet again. Written by a new name, Susan Estelle Jansen. She apparently wrote on Home Improvement, the Lizzie McGuire movie, which we love.
Big fan.
And Bratz.
Ooh.
Random. Air date October 22nd, 1993.
Question for the audience. Were you a Bratz girl or boy, or were you a Barbie girl or boy? Let me know.
Or non-binary. Viewers,
Thank you. Yes.
17.1 million. First impressions?
Definitely not the strongest episode that we've seen so far.
Totally. Agree.
I did watch it twice. But there were some good moments I felt like that we can talk about.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it. I really didn't love this at all. I had a lot of problems with Eric in this episode and his whole storyline.
Also, I didn't quite understand his perspective throughout the entirety of this episode.
Same. So we start off in the classroom, and Feeney's giving out papers. He says the highest score goes to, and Cory does Minkus. Does it go to Minkus? Let me guess. Minkus. It's Minkus, right? There's a pause. Mr. Minkus. So Minkus gets the paper. Yes, he got the highest score. So it was a geography quiz that Minkus got 100 on, or best score on. And Cory got a C because apparently he wrote like East Germany because the textbook said it, which I was honestly like, good for you, Cory, for like actually reading the textbook. The problem was you just didn't listen in class, when apparently Feeney said that like not to listen to the textbook for that because the textbook is too old, because the Department of Education can't afford new textbooks because the Berlin Wall has fallen since then and there is no East Germany anymore.
Which is a conversation in itself.
It really is. What'd you think?
I appreciate them kind of bringing attention to the lack of funds in public schools.
The kid is back with the t-shirt that was my fashion moment.
Yes. And did you see what it said?
Did you see what it said? Because
no, I had to pause and I still don't know what it said.
I still don't know what it said. Everything, something, something, something on money, free up education, free up something.
I could not tell you.
So interesting.
I also think that's
education
just so
activism.
Interesting that they give him the same shirt. I love that. Though I wish we could see what it says.
Don't love that. I did and I didn't. I loved it for selfish reasons because I was like, the shirt's back. Now I can see what it says. But I was like, really? They gave the black kid who still doesn't have a name the activist shirt again, and then it didn't fit his character, because then later in the episode, and we'll get there, but when Cory finally starts studying and trying to do better, he's on the side of Sean going, why, like, dude, why are you studying? Like, teachers are starting to notice, like, you're becoming a nerd. And I was like, he's wearing a shirt that says, like, free up education. And then he's like telling Cory to stop studying. Like, it's either it's very interesting and we need more information about his family, because maybe his like parent gave him that shirt and he doesn't actually believe it or know what it says, or, you know what I mean? I was just like, I feel like he was a prop. I feel like he was being used the way that a lot of actors of color are used in shows in the past, shows and movies, as like devices, as tools, as props, and not as like, and they're not given like a spectrum of humanity, an interesting story. You know, they're not considered, like, he doesn't have a name. I think that's like the main issue I have too. I'm like, we still don't know his name.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Feeney announces the geography competition, which, is it a B? Why is it called a B?
Why is it called a B? I'm looking this up. I'm so curious. Those who used the word, including most early students of language, assumed that it was the same word as referred to the insect. They thought that this particular meaning had probably been inspired by the obvious similarity between these human gatherings and the industrious social nature of a beehive.
Like a buzzing beehive of activity and knowledge.
But it's interesting that, like, because there are countless gatherings of humans doing stuff.
Right.
Why
exactly.
did it stick with a spelling bee?
Exactly. So Feeney has a series of plaques on his classroom wall. First place plaques, all won presumably by Minkus, or at the very least like his past students. I just think it's so funny that like this geography competition has been like his pride and joy for years.
6 years or 5 years in the making.
So he's like, this year I've selected Minkus. You selected Minkus, right? And Cory does the same thing, Mr. Minkus. And the prize is announced, and it's going to be that you get to be a bat boy at the opening game of the World Series, which immediately I was like, so they're assuming that the winner of this geography prize is going to be a boy. Cool.
Or into baseball.
And I love that it wasn't. I love that it was a girl. But I was also like, we're still calling it Bat Boy though? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cory decides he wants to do the competition because he wants to win the opportunity to be a Bat Boy at the World Series. We're in the kitchen now, and Eric is doing his homework. Morgan is being annoying and throwing vegetables in the garbage. I really don't like her character at all. She's a child, and I don't want to... She's doing her very best, and she's so sweet. Her character, I don't like the writing of her character. She's just so annoying. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, sure. They give her little one-liners, and I'm like, okay, she's cute.
All right.
I mean, it's the same way I felt about Michelle on Full House. It was like, she's cute, whatever.
But I was annoyed by her too.
Oh yeah, she was annoying.
Right?
She was.
Annoying. So Morgan's throwing broccoli in the garbage, and Amy unpacks groceries, and Amy asks Eric to babysit Friday night. Eric says he can't because he's going to the Aerosmith concert, and Amy's like, cool, we'll get a sitter and we'll all drive together. And Eric's like, what? And she's like, well, your dad and I are also going, so like we'll all go together, which in our household would be awesome.
That would rock. A free ride right? to the Aerosmith concert. Hell yeah.
Exactly. And they don't even have tickets near each other. Like, her and Alan's tickets are like in the front, obviously, because they're adults and they can afford better tickets than Eric can as a teenager. You get to enjoy it, and then you get a free ride home. Like,
yeah.
What the hell? What are you like? He acts like he's like.
Yeah, it was like the weirdest. He had like the weirdest beef this episode. It made no sense. And his parents are so cool. And, like, even the girlfriend was like, I love your parents. Like, what are you on right now?
Exactly. There you go. You captured
I didn't feel for him at all. I was just like, I don't know what you're on. Like, get over it. You get a free ride. You're not even going to see them at the concert. It's fine. Relax.
So we're back in the classroom. Minkus tells Feeney that he doesn't want to be in the competition anymore because we did skip a scene where basically Cory, Sean, and the no-name kid with the activist t-shirt come in with Minkus held like a prisoner. And Minkus is like, I love the moment where he just like pauses and looks at Amy and he's like, call my mom. And then they like push him up the stairs and he's just yelling his phone number behind him. He's so good. And they basically convince him out of doing the competition. They're telling him that being a nerd means he doesn't have any friends, and don't you hate this, and don't you hate having your underwear pulled up?
It's not so bad.
Like, it's not so bad. Audience loves it. So now we're back in the classroom. Minkus is telling Feeney that he doesn't want to be in the competition. And he's like giving him his little spiel, and he's like, because exceptional guys get bombarded with, get bombardment balls thrown at their heads, and regular guys do the throwing. And Cory's like behind him mouthing it like a dance mom because he fed him the whole thing. So Cory ends up doing it. Which I kind of was mad at Feeney for not being like, all right, if you want to do it that badly. Like Feeney was clearly prioritizing his own ego. Like, he literally said to him at one point, I don't want you to embarrass me in front of everyone. Like, dude, you're a teacher and you have a kid who's literally begging you to learn about geography, and you're...
Yeah, but I think Mr. Feeney's point was like, he didn't think that Cory's intentions were pure. That he...
who cares?
No, I think Mr. Feeney
cares.
Hearing you out. Yeah, no,
Mr.
Feeney cares because like he and that's kind of the crux of the episode. Like that's kind of the arching theme of the episode where like at the end Cory does learn something, and that's all that's a win for Mr. Feeney and for him. And so he wasn't convinced that Cory was going in for pure reasons, and he didn't have pure reasons. So he was very skeptical, but he was very persistent, and he also didn't have Minkus to do it. So he was like, okay, it's either you or nobody. So I guess we'll do this.
I can't wait till we get to later seasons when the writers are smarter than this. Sorry, writer. But like the writers kind of expect the audience to be smarter, and we've been through these like tired plots where we're like, okay, like I just feel like the audience sees it already. We see it, we get it. Like, we don't need all this time to get to Feeney being like, all right, Cory, you can do it.
I guess, but we're still kind of in this learning phase about the characters. We don't know Cory that well yet. And Mr. Feeney, assuming that this is his first time teaching Cory in 6th grade, he's also learning Cory too.
Right. I understand that we have to go through these to get to those later points where we know the characters so well, so the writing gets smarter. So we're out on the patio, and the kid wearing the free education shirt is telling Cory to stop studying. Cory's like slowly turning into Minkus. He's like rubbing his nose and talking about how things are like fascinating. Minkus is wearing like these humongous yellow pants that are being held up with these like very short suspenders with a colorful striped t-shirt that's also pretty oversized, but mostly around the arms, tucked in with a backwards red baseball cap. And he just looks ridiculous.
It's so silly.
It's so silly. But he reminded me of that game, Ants in the Pants.
Yes! I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes, of course. I remember that.
That's what his pants looked like. Like you would like flick little ants into them.
Into the pants.
So big.
They were so big and so wide. It was like a cylinder.
Like they would stand up on their own without him in them. Minkus and Feeney have a talk about how Western civilization is in its decline, and Minkus says, "I completely agree. I'm going to go watch Beavis and Butthead now." Audience goes wild.
Yeah. What the heck is going on with Beavis and Butthead? Am I missing something about the culture?
Yeah, like, did the writers of this show also write Beavis and Butthead, and they like told everyone we're gonna murder you if you don't clap when we say Beavis and Butthead? Are they holding up signs that are like, "Go wild now"? Like, what is going on?
We need to do our research for the next episode and come with some conclusions on why this is happening. Because this is now the second time, and I'm like, I need to know what the backstory is.
Exactly. And it doesn't feel like the people who watch Beavis and Butthead would be all about this show, about this kid learning lessons and this teacher teaching. Like, right? Like, it does what? What?
I don't know what's going on.
I feel like I'm going crazy. Cory learns that Hawaii was called the Sandwich Islands, which I didn't know. I did know the Earl of Sandwich invented the sandwich, or at least that's the lore, but did not know about the Sandwich Islands. There's a lot of colonization in this episode, which I was like waiting for the moment where you'd be like, and there it is, which I almost got, which I can't wait to get to, but I was wrong. So we're back in the kitchen. Cory's family is quizzing him. Cory's killing it. He's getting everything right. Eric starts like throwing musical artists at Cory because his parents were throwing like, you know, geography stats at him. And the musical artists, he says, are like artists that people much older than him absolutely would listen to.
Eric
like
Clapton.
Diana Ross or something. Eric Clapton. And I was like, what is going on with Eric? Like, he doesn't have any music taste that's young and like his... And he also like is so dumb that he doesn't understand that these musical artists are like older and that older generations like them.
Yeah.
And he's also upset about it.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
what
weird.
is this message here?
I don't know what I don't know what they were trying to do there.
We have parents that in our household are like the gurus of music. Like, we learned from them what good music was.
Yeah. And maybe that's why we don't understand, because like they have really good taste in music, so we grew up with really good taste in music. I don't think that's opinion. I think that's fact. Like, objectively, like really good artists.
Objectively.
And so if we were seeing a concert that they would have wanted to go to because they listened to it growing up, like it would be like, yeah, we should all go because like this is like amazing, once in a lifetime experience. Like, they're not going to be around for that much longer, some of these artists. So it doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't.
Really doesn't. And like,
I will say, like, at least for me, our parents were very supportive of our music taste. That was definitely not their music taste. Like, Mom took me to a Hannah Montana Meet Miley Cyrus concert, and that was one of the best days of my life. And she also agrees that was an amazing concert. Miley Cyrus is such a good artist.
Yeah, I have to say that was like so sweet, because like they were into, I mean, you know, like Bruce Springsteen, the Beatles, Eric Clapton, Jackson Brown, the Talking Heads, Neil Diamond, Neil Young,
Crosby, Stills, and Nash. But just, so many
Paul
McCartney
fantastic
and
artists.
Wings.
But so like, and then all of those people were like our parents' age, older than our parents. So we were used to like great music, good legendary artists being older. Like that's normal, right? Okay, so Eric makes no sense. Then we're in the auditorium for Cory's B. And Cory is cocky because he's like, I'm gonna be this bad boy. And then there's like a little like time jump, and he's looking lost as shit. He's like, The announcer is like, contestant number 3, name the indigenous peoples of Tierra del Fuego. And she goes, what are the Yagans? You do not need to put it in the form of a question. Next, contestant number 2. What is the primary export of the Tuamotus? I believe that is copra. And contestant number 1. To whom do they belong? Okay, this is the moment when I was confused and I got really upset at this episode. And I was like, there it is. I was waiting for it. And it's interesting psychologically how we can get upset about things when we're looking for the problem, right? Like I'll admit I was looking for the problem and I thought I found it, but it's not what I thought. So when she said, to whom do they belong? I thought she was talking about the Yagans, and I thought she was implying that those people, the indigenous people, belong to a country. Because Cory's like, to whom, he says, to whom do who belong? So because he said who, and she goes, the Tuamotus, admittedly, I didn't know that the Tuamotus are a series of islands, like archipelagos. So I confused that with Yagans and thought it was the indigenous people of Tierra del Fuego. So this is why it's important to know geography and to know the things that Cory's studying. So I was like very annoyed because she repeats it when he says that. And she says, of what country are they a possession? So I'm like, wow, oh my God, they're really leaning into this. So a country possesses these people? Like, holy shit. And the answer is France. And I was like, wow, France.
Typical
France. And then I wrote that I do love that a girl won the prize and that she becomes the bad boy though. So I was like, that didn't make up for, at that point in the episode, I was like, well, this doesn't make up for it, but okay. So then we're back in the living room. Eric is still being a baby about his parents having a life. The whole thing gets wrapped up with basically his parents coming home from the concert after him. He's there with the girl complaining. His parents are like, look, deal with it. His dad gives him this speech like, when I was your age, I had a father that was like the one that you want. I had a father that was not fun. Like, you don't think that we should be having fun because we're your parents. Guess what? We're not dead yet. And I wanted a father like the one you got. Live with it. And he kisses him on the head and he goes upstairs. Little moment where Eric turns to his date and is like, did my parents just leave us alone together on the couch? Ooh, I'm the guy with the cool parents. Alan yells down the stairs, not that cool. And we're back in the classroom. And at that point, I was so annoyed because I was like, wow, they really brought back the line. Because Cory goes to Minkus, hey, Minkus, who owns the Tuamotus? And I was like, and Minkus says, France, of course. Cory and Feeney have a little wrap-up moment. You know, I want you to know that I tried my hardest. Feeney says, you have pushed yourself to your farthest latitudes and you charted new territory. Hands him his paper. He got an A. And that's what the whole episode was about. It was about Cory actually getting better at geography and applying himself and learning about himself that he can learn things if he wants to. He just has to want to.
Yeah.
And there's this whole thing in my school about internal versus external motivation. And Cory needed external motivation to learn about geography. But what was cool was that he started getting some internal motivation as he got into it, right? He was like, oh, this is actually, sorry, I keep saying internal, external. It's actually extrinsic and intrinsic. So he gets intrinsic motivation as he starts. He's like, wow, that's really interesting. I want to know about that. Oh, cool. Wait, what? Earl of Sandwich? Who's that? Just, he invented the sandwich. What?
Yeah.
Intrinsic motivation. I am curious, therefore I want to learn. Extrinsic motivation. I want to be a bat boy. Therefore, I'll force myself to shove this information into my head for one day.
That's huge.
Huge.
It takes a little bit of that as a kid to kind of excel in that and just like stay curious and learn more out of that curiosity.
Totally. I love the moment though when Feeney pins the paper where the empty plaque goes.
I got emotional. I may or may not have shed a tear in the privacy of my own living room.
Yeah,
I did. I'm very emotional these days. It's easy for me to cry, and I definitely cried.
I didn't cry, but I definitely was like, oh, that's such a wonderful thing. Because Feeney also learned to stop caring so much about his stupid plaque and to realize that he's a teacher because he should be teaching kids. And he taught a kid, and the kid learned.
I think it was profound that he said we won because like he won and Cory also won in a different way.
Totally.
And they learned something together.
Exactly. And like, don't get me wrong, like you definitely want the kids like Minkus to feel excited and motivated and to have chances to, you know, to exercise the muscle of their brain. You know, there's so much put on athletics, and like kids like Minkus should have a chance to be competitive with their, you know, knowledge, because that's what brings him joy. Okay. And then at the end, we get the moment of the episode that made me go, oh, I was wrong. And I was so glad they included this. And I almost wonder if they did it because people like me might not understand what happened back at the competition. So Cory's watching the game on TV, the game where the girl who won the geography bee is the bat boy. And we hear the announcers. We don't see the TV, but we just hear the announcers saying like, bat boy is storming the field with a sign. And what does it say? It says, get France out of the Tuamotus. And the minute I heard that, I was like, oh, the Tuamotus is a place. Or it's like, so I like Google it and I'm like, oh, it's archipelagos, it's islands. And then I was like, I got all mad about nothing except colonization is also a fucking issue. So,
there's a reason you're angry. And
but by the time I realized it, she was already being an activist and protesting it. So I was like, okay, episode, I see you. And then what I love was that the announcers go through literally my whole thought process. One of the other one goes, I always thought the Tuamotus were the indigenous people of Tierra del Fuego. And the other one goes, oh no, John, those are the Yagans. And I was like,
that is hysterical. That's hysterical.
I was like, touche. Thank you.
Really good writing. Episode. I love it.
All right, what was your fashion moment?
I think my fashion moment was Cory's outfit in the first scene. I love the idea of like a baggy long sleeve shirt with a even baggier short sleeve shirt on top of it. I just like love that look so much, and I love the color combo. It was like blue and white and yellow. I was so into it.
Cute. What are your takeaways?
I think my takeaway of this episode is it's easy to kind of assume that the teacher is always teaching and the student is always learning, but sometimes the teacher is also learning, and this is kind of a scenario of that where maybe the teacher and the student can learn something together, and that can be really beautiful and also humbling in some ways.
That is actually always happening for me. I am always learning from the students, and that is the best way to learn. When I say the best way to learn, I mean it is the best situation that could be happening in a classroom. That's what I meant. Like where the teacher and student are mutually learning from each other. And there's actually a moment in the episode where Cory says to Feeney, how many times have you said, I'm an empty vessel? And what he's referring to is this old approach to teaching where students were viewed as empty vessels that teachers would fill up with knowledge. And what that justified or validated was a system in which the teacher is lecturing the students. The students are silent, they're taking notes, and the teacher is talking at them. And that was the way education was for a long time, still is in a lot of spaces. And there's this educational theorist, Paulo Freire, I never know how to say his name, who argues very strongly against that. He has this book called Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And what was happening for so many years was specifically students of color were just being talked at and filled up with knowledge that was very much from a white male perspective, from a colonizer's perspective. And there wasn't any space for them to question, to have a dialogue about that perspective, or to bring their own experiences into the classroom, their own perspectives, the things that they were seeing in their world. They were constantly being gaslit. They were constantly being invalidated. And so now I think in a lot of educational spaces that are at least, full of teachers that have gone to grad school and, studied educational theory, are approaching students with that mutual, consistent dialogue. It's discourse. That's how students learn. Students learn by trying and failing, by discussing, and by by being able to have the realities of their world validated and explained in a way that makes sense to them, that feels like it's real, I don't know.
Wow.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying, and I'm complicating it.
No, you're not. That's amazing.
My takeaway was don't come at things loaded up and wound up and ready to see the problem, because you might jump to conclusions, wrong conclusions. But also,
kind of like how Eric did.
But also, like, I walked away feeling really proud of, like, I don't know how to explain this, but like the 60s, there was a big movement in education. And so like this show takes place in the 90s. So it's like decades after this like shift in education. I mean, when we talk about like kids sitting on like beanbag chairs and like, having this like hippie style approach to education, like that was going on in the 60s. And there was a lot of activism going on in classrooms and things like that. So the 90s, I think we tend to think about like anything remotely in the past as like problematic, but we don't always acknowledge that there were a lot of great activists doing incredible things back then. So I was looking for problems in this episode, and like, I don't know, but also I was kind of like proud of it. I was like, okay, like there really wasn't anything like super problematic, except for the fact that like there's this black actor who still doesn't have a name, and his character doesn't make sense because his shirt doesn't make sense. And like, but ultimately, like, I'm actually really proud of the show so far for not being like as problematic as I'm expecting it to be, I guess is what I'm saying. So I want to like acknowledge that there were good people in the past working for goodness and equality, and they were enlightened and understanding of, of the issues in our, educational system, in our, in the superstructure of our society. So that is my takeaway. I want to be proud of people in the past who did good things and not always see problems.
Yeah. And kind of like understand where they're coming from and what was happening around them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can only do so much given the times, and their upbringing.
Yes. I don't want that to make it okay for people to be like racist, because that is the same argument that people use. Totally. Like, well, at the time, that's just the way that, right? So like, that's not what I mean. I guess I'm just saying, like,
I think the way I see it, it's more like people who have this power to write and connect with people, right? Like write a show that will connect with millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
How can you get the most people to see your perspective, and to how can you promote something good without kind of going potentially over the top, whatever that means, where people like start to go against you. So you might have to start subtly so that people can kind of start to understand and maybe change their mind about certain things versus going head on a certain topic.
You know, there were people that fought against colonization, like hundreds of years ago. People fought against it. You know, like
I mean, it's been happening for centuries. Yeah, we've been fighting against it for centuries.
Exactly. So, but anyway, those are our takeaways.
Interesting takeaway is colonization.
Thank you so much for listening. Rate and review us. You can do that on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram. The name of the wine we had tonight is called Francis Coppola Diamond Collection Black Label Claret Cabernet Sauvignon. And the theme song credit goes to the lovely Julia Rosa. Next week's episode is episode 6 of season 1, called Boys to Mensa. Allusion to the Genius Society. Cory cheats on an intelligence test. See how that goes for him.
Like and subscribe.